The great crystal hall of Veiranis shone with lights from 1,000 hanging orbs. Its high ceiling glittered like a star field, and banners of alien houses swayed gently from the pillars. The hall was filled with nobles, soldiers, and envoys from across the empire. Everyone had gathered for a single reason: the choosing of Princess Lorana's husband. It was not just a wedding ceremony. It was a declaration of power. Each royal daughter of the empire was paired with a powerful house, and their unions decided alliances, trade, and control of fleets. For years, nobles whispered about which house would claim Lorana, but whispers turned into doubts, and doubts became cruel laughter. Lorana stood at the center platform, dressed in silver robes that shimmered faintly in the light. Her crown sat lightly on her brow, and her violet eyes, bright and deep, swept over the crowd. She was beautiful by every standard of her people, yet no one seemed to look at her with admiration. Instead, they looked with judgment. She knew why. Ever since childhood, they had called her cursed. She was born during a storm that had destroyed part of the capital. Her tutors whispered she lacked strength. Rumors spread that she carried weakness in her blood. No matter how much she studied, no matter how hard she tried to prove herself, the shadow of rejection followed her. Now, in front of the galaxy, she had to endure the choosing. One by one, suitors stepped forward. Each was tall, armored, carrying the marks of noble houses. Each approached the center, bowed before the queen, Lorana's mother, and then glanced at Lorana. They looked into her eyes for only a second before turning away, and then they moved aside, choosing silence over acceptance. The first, noble, shook his head and walked back. The second hesitated, frowned, and left. The third didn't even look at her properly before turning away. The crowd began to murmur. Some smirked, others whispered cruelly. Each refusal was like a dagger piercing her heart. Her fingers trembled slightly, hidden within her sleeves. She wanted to be strong. She wanted to hold her chin high. But inside, she felt her chest tightening. On the throne above, the High Queen kept her face calm. She had ruled for centuries and showed no weakness. Yet Lorana wondered if even her mother was ashamed now. When the 10th noble refused, the humiliation became unbearable. Lorana's cheeks burned. She thought of fleeing the hall, but that would only make her look weaker. The ceremony had to continue, even if it crushed her spirit. Among the many guests standing near the back was someone different, a man who did not belong to their kind. He was shorter than most aliens, without horns, scales, or wings. His skin was pale, his hair dark, and his posture calm. His clothes were simple compared to the jeweled armor of the nobles, yet his presence was steady, like a stone in a river that refused to move. His name was Captain Elias Vance, an envoy from Earth. He was invited as a gesture of diplomacy, though many in the Empire laughed at the idea of humans being equals. To them, humans were strange, reckless creatures from a dangerous death world. They were tolerated, not respected. Elias knew this, yet he remained watching silently. Lorana's eyes, wandering desperately across the hall, met his. Unlike the others, he did not look away. He did not sneer or judge. His gaze was steady, curious, even kind. For a moment, she forgot the crowd. For a moment, she felt seen. Her heart beat faster. She had always dreamed of someone who would see her as more than a burden, more than a cursed princess. And now, in her lowest moment, the only eyes that gave her comfort belonged to a human. The hall grew colder as more suitors refused. The master of ceremony cleared his throat. "Are there no more who would claim union with Princess Lorana?" His voice echoed through the hall. The silence was louder than any shout. Nobles shifted uncomfortably. Some smirked openly, enjoying the disgrace. Lorana could not bear it. Her chest tightened until she thought she might break. She looked again at the human, at Elias. His gaze had not shifted. He stood firm, as though he silently offered her strength. And then, before she could stop herself, the words escaped her lips. "I choose," she said, her voice clear and ringing through the hall. Every head turned toward her. Even her mother's eyes widened. Tradition allowed the princess to accept or reject, but never to speak out first. Yet she had spoken. Her trembling hand lifted. Her finger pointed, not at a noble, not at a warrior, but at the human envoy standing at the back. "You," she said. Her voice grew stronger with each word. "Will you be my husband?" The hall froze. Gasps erupted from every corner. Whispers surged like a storm. Some noble shouted in outrage. "Impossible! An insult! A disgrace to the crown!" The queen's advisors leaned toward her throne, demanding the choice be denied. But the queen only raised her hand, for silence. Her expression was unreadable, her thoughts hidden behind years of rule. Elias felt the weight of every eye turned toward him. His heart pounded in his chest. He had not expected this. He was only here to observe, to report back to Earth. He knew this was no small matter. Accepting or refusing would shape politics, diplomacy, and perhaps war itself. Yet when he looked at Lyrana, standing alone and trembling but proud, he felt something stir within him. He saw not a cursed princess, but a woman with courage to defy tradition in front of her entire world. The hall waited. Every second stretched like an eternity. Would the human dare to answer? And if he did, what would it mean for them all? The silence that followed Princess Lyrana's question was heavier than stone. The crystal hall, filled with banners and glowing orbs, felt as if the air itself had frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Thousands of eyes stared first at the princess, then at the human envoy she had pointed to. "Will you be my husband?" she had said. A forbidden question. A question no princess had ever spoken in such a hall. The nobles erupted like a storm. Some shouted, others hissed with outrage. Their voices rose above one another, echoing across the vaulted chamber. "This is madness. She has disgraced the ceremony. To choose a human, barbaric." The master of ceremony stumbled, backward in shock. His scroll slipped from his hands and rolled across the floor. He had overseen countless unions, but never had he seen such defiance. On the throne, the High Queen raised her hand. Her voice was calm, but her words cut sharper than a blade. Silence. The uproar slowly died down, though angry whispers still hissed through the crowd. All eyes turned back to the princess and the human. Lyrana's heart hammered in her chest. Her palms were damp with sweat beneath her sleeves, but she stood tall. She had spoken, and there was no taking it back. For the first time in her life, she had chosen for herself. No curse, no shame, no whispers could stop her now. But whether her choice would be honored or crushed, that was not in her hands. Elias Vance, the human envoy, felt the weight of the entire galaxy pressing down on him. He had stood calmly through battles, through political debates, through alien stares that treated him like a curiosity. But this was different. A royal princess had just asked him to be her husband in front of her empire. He thought quickly. If he accepted, he risked throwing Earth into a storm of alien politics. If he refused, he might wound her publicly, leaving her humiliated beyond repair. His people had come here to build bridges, not burn them. And yet, this was more than diplomacy. He looked at Lyrana again, at the way her eyes held his, afraid, yet shining with desperate courage. He did not answer, yet he knew that once he spoke there would be no going back. The queen leaned forward on her throne, her golden crown glimmering in the light. Her voice carried through the hall. "Princess Lyrana, do you understand what you have done? You have broken the flow of the choosing. You have turned your eyes to an outsider, one not of our blood." Lyrana lifted her chin. Her voice did not shake. "I understand, mother, but I will not stand here and be shamed while my worth is measured and discarded. I will not wait for scraps of pity. He," she pointed again at Elias, "is the one I choose." Gasps filled the chamber once more. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, yet there was something else there, something like curiosity. And you, human? Elias Vance of Earth? Do you dare to answer her request? Do you claim her hand, knowing the storms it will bring? Every noble leaned forward. Every breath hung in the air. Elias felt his throat tighten. He was a soldier, an envoy, not a politician trained for this kind of fire. But he knew one thing. He could not betray the courage Lorana had shown. He could not let her stand alone after speaking with such boldness. Slowly he stepped forward, each step echoing on the polished floor. The crowd parted as he walked, their glares sharp, their mutters filled with scorn. He stopped at the edge of the platform, standing before the princess. He bowed his head slightly, a human gesture of respect. "I am only a man of Earth," he said, his voice steady. "I hold no throne, no noble fleet, but if she asks me, then yes, I will stand with her." The hall erupted again, this time louder, angrier, like thunder crashing against the crystal walls. Nobles shouted, some demanding his immediate arrest. "Blasphemy! Remove him! This cannot be allowed." But Lorana's lips curved into the faintest smile. For the first time in her life, someone had said yes. The queen raised her hand once more. "Enough." Her voice silenced the chaos again. She studied Elias, her piercing eyes searching for weakness, for deception. "Very well," she said, at last. "If this union is to be considered, then the human must face the trials of union." Dawn broke over the crystal towers of Veyranis, casting pale gold light over the spires and streets below. The city was quiet for the hour before the court awoke, but in the palace, preparation for the trials of union had begun. Guards moved, swiftly, setting up obstacles, marking paths, and testing ancient devices meant to challenge even the strongest alien warrior. Elias Vance sat in the guest quarters, staring out of a tall window. His pale human hands rested on the sill. He could see the first light reflecting off the tallest tower, glittering like distant stars. His heart still beat with the memory of last night's events. A princess had chosen him. A human, a species considered weak and primitive, had been elevated to a royal union before the entire alien empire. And now, the trials awaited him. He had no armor, no weapons of alien design, no fleet of ships. All he had was his mind, his training as a soldier, and his determination to honor the courage Lorana had shown. He had spent months learning about alien customs, their rules of etiquette, and their combat training. Still, facing centuries-old trials designed for superhuman aliens was no small task. A soft knock came at the door. "Captain Vance, the Queen's guards will escort you to the trial grounds," said a young attendant, a nervous human liaison. "You must leave immediately." Elias nodded. He took a deep breath and followed. The halls of the palace were empty, at this hour, echoing with the sound of his boots on polished crystal floors. Each step felt heavier than the last, but he forced his shoulders back and kept his chin high. He would not falter. The trial grounds opened into a vast arena surrounded by tiers of seats, most still empty. At the center, a series of obstacles, weapons, and puzzles had been arranged. Alien nobles would arrive soon to witness the trials, and they expected one thing: failure. Lorana had been allowed to observe only from the palace balcony. Her heart beat in her chest as she watched him step forward. The human was small, far smaller than any alien warrior who had attempted these trials before, but there was no fear in his eyes, only resolve. The High Queen appeared on the balcony above, her gaze fixed on Elias. She spoke in the ceremonial voice that carried across the arena. "Human of Earth, you must complete the trials of union to prove your worth. Fail and this union is void. Succeed and you will stand beside the princess as her chosen." Elias bowed slightly. "I understand, Your Majesty." The first trial was one of strength. Massive alien constructs carved from crystal and steel blocked the path. Each was heavier than a human could lift, or so the nobles believed. The challenge was to move the constructs into specific positions to open a path forward. Aliens in the crowd snorted at his efforts. A human could never match the strength of a Veyranus warrior. But Elias did not rely on brute force alone. He studied the constructs, noting their balance and pivot points. Using leverage, he shifted each obstacle with precise movements. Some of the nobles murmured in surprise. The crowd grew restless with curiosity. After what felt like hours, the final construct fell into place. The path to the second trial opened. Elias's chest heaved with exhaustion, but he did not stop. One step forward, one challenge at a time. The second trial tested agility and speed. A series of floating platforms hovered above a deep pit. Each platform moved unpredictably, requiring balance, timing, and quick reflexes. Aliens trained for decades, sometimes, failed this stage. Elias studied the platforms carefully. He remembered Earth's parkour training, lessons in timing and jumping. He leaped from one platform to the next, adjusting mid-air with human intuition. Some platforms wobbled dangerously, but he caught them with a steady grip. He could hear gasps from the nobles, whispers spread. The human survives. Lorana watched from above, her pulse racing. She had never been so proud of anyone before. Not for skill, not for bravery, but for sheer determination. Elias had stepped into a world that expected him to fail, and yet he advanced. The third trial was mental. A puzzle of alien design awaited him. Floating glyphs impossible to read for an untrained mind required arrangement into a sequence that opened a doorway. Many had failed this trial before, their knowledge of alien mathematics and history insufficient. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. He observed the glyphs, comparing patterns and shapes to human logic. He recognized symmetry, balance and repetition, universal patterns that transcended species. Slowly, carefully, he aligned the glyphs. When the final piece clicked into place, a soft chime rang. The doorway opened. Murmurs ran through the audience. Aliens exchanged glances, some in disbelief. Humans, they thought, were fragile and weak. Yet this human had passed 3 trials that would have crushed most alien warriors. The 4th trial was endurance. A chamber filled with extreme conditions, scorching heat, biting cold, and artificial gravity shifts designed to break the body. Even Lorana winced as she watched him step inside. She wanted to call out to stop him, but she knew he could not fail from outside encouragement. Inside, Elias's body strained. His muscles burned, his breath came in shallow gasps. Every step was agony. Yet his mind remained clear, focused on one thing: finishing the trial, surviving, proving himself worthy. Hours passed, or so it seemed. Finally, the chamber doors opened. Elias emerged, bruised, exhausted, but upright. The nobles fell silent. A human, small, frail in appearance, had endured what many mighty aliens could not. Even the queen's lips pressed into a thin line as if to hide her surprise. The final trial was combat. Aliens armed with energy blades and shields stood ready. Their task was not to kill him, but to defeat him. If he failed, he could be seriously injured. Humans were not built for alien combat. They were fragile, unarmored, unenhanced. Elias faced them with calm. He remembered his training. Strategy over strength, awareness over speed. He moved with precision, dodging strikes, using the enemy's momentum against them. Each attack he blocked or redirected with clever leverage. Slowly, he gained ground, disarming one after another. The nobles held their breath. Could this human truly survive? Could he overcome aliens built for battle since birth? Finally, he stood victorious, the last opponent kneeling. Silence fell. Then, applause, hesitant at first, then growing louder. Even some nobles could not hide their admiration. Lorana's heart soared. She had never felt such relief, such pride. Her chosen had done the impossible. Elias approached her balcony, breathing heavily, sweat dripping down his face. He bowed deeply. "I have completed the trials, Princess," he said. "I stand ready to honor my promise." Tears sprang to Lorana's eyes. She smiled widely, her violet eyes shining. "You saw me," she whispered softly, though only he could hear, "when no one else did." The Queen's gaze met Elias's. After a long pause, she spoke in a measured tone. "You have shown courage, skill, endurance, and wisdom. I admit, the human has passed where many aliens failed. You may stand beside my daughter, should she still wish it." The crowd erupted into murmurs and whispers of astonishment. Many aliens still doubted, but others began to nod in respect. Humans were fragile, but they were clever, resourceful, and now undeniably brave. Lorana stepped down from the balcony, moving toward Elias. The nobles parted reluctantly. When she reached him, she extended her hand. "You have risked much to stand here. Thank you for seeing me." Elias took her hand gently. "It was your courage that gave me strength," he said. "You showed me that even the smallest can defy the impossible." Together they stood at the center of the arena, the princess once unwanted and the human once underestimated. Side by side they had changed the perception of both their worlds. And somewhere in the crowd, whispers began to spread. Perhaps humans were not as weak as the galaxy believed. Perhaps the courage of one human could stand beside the greatest warriors in the Empire. The arena still buzzed with whispers long after the trials had ended. Nobles filed out in groups, their voices sharp with disbelief. Some muttered curses. Others spoke of tradition being broken. Yet a few, very few, admitted respect for the human who had endured what many of their own warriors could not. Princess Lorana walked beside Elias as they left the trial grounds. Her heart was light for the first time in years. She had been called cursed, weak, and unwanted. Yet now a man, no, a human, had stood for her in front of the Empire and succeeded. "You should rest," she said softly, as they entered a quieter corridor. "Your body must ache after all that." Elias gave a tired laugh. "I've felt worse. Earth training is harsh in its own way. But thank you." He glanced at her, his eyes steady even though his body showed exhaustion. "It wasn't just for the trial. I wanted them to see you were right to choose me." Her cheeks warmed. Few had ever spoken to her with such sincerity. "And you wanted me to see that as well?" He nodded once. "Yes." Above them, hidden in shadows of the higher halls, alien nobles gathered in secret chambers. Their whispers were darker than those outside. "This cannot be allowed. The princess shamed us all, and now this human makes us look weak. If they unite, it will break the balance of power." Some called for Elias's removal by law. Others spoke of less honorable methods. One noble, cloaked in dark silk, slammed his fist against the table. "If he cannot be stopped by trials, then he will be stopped by death. We cannot let a human sit beside the throne." Plots began to take root. The next day, the court gathered again in the grand hall. The Queen had summoned them to witness. The day of the union ceremony arrived. The palace gleamed with banners of gold and silver, the symbols of the royal house fluttering in the high wind. Nobles, generals, and envoys from distant stars filled the grand hall. The music was solemn, the air heavy with expectation. For the Empire, this day was history. For Elias and Lorana, it was destiny. Lorana stood dressed in flowing white robes that shimmered like moonlight. A crown of crystal rested on her dark hair. She looked radiant. Though her heart beat fast with both hope and fear, she knew enemies were waiting, hidden among the crowd, waiting for the moment to strike. Beside her, Elias wore the ceremonial armor of the Empire. It was polished silver with blue lines of energy across the chest. Though meant for ceremony, it was still strong enough to protect him. His sharp eyes scanned the hall, alert and ready. He had survived poison, traps, and shadows. Now he expected a direct attack. The Queen sat high upon her throne, her expression calm but her gaze piercing. She too suspected danger, though even her power could not uncover every hidden hand in the Empire. The ceremony began. The High Speaker read aloud the vows of unity, words that echoed through the hall. On this day, We bind two souls. One of our empire born of blood and crown. One from beyond the stars who has proven his worth by trial. Together they shall stand, not apart, but as one. Lorana reached for Elias's hand. He clasped it firmly, their fingers intertwining. Whispers swept the room. Some saw hope, others saw betrayal. But before the seal of union could be marked, the attack began. A sudden crack split the air. The stained glass windows above shattered as dark-cloaked figures leapt inside. Blades of energy flashed in their hands. "Strike him down," one shouted. Chaos exploded. Nobles screamed and scattered. Guards rushed forward, but the assassins were fast, cutting down the first line of defense. Elias pushed Lorana behind him. His instincts as a soldier came alive. Grabbing a fallen guard's blade, he blocked the first strike aimed at his heart. Sparks flew as steel clashed with energy. Another assassin lunged. Elias sidestepped, pulling the attacker forward, and slammed his armored elbow into the alien's chest. The figure crumpled with a grunt. Lorana was not idle, though she had never been trained for war. She seized a ceremonial spear from the wall and stood at Elias's side. When an assassin came close, she thrust the weapon with surprising speed, forcing the attacker back. "You fight well," Elias said between breaths. "I fight for us," she answered fiercely. The queen rose, her voice booming. "Guards, protect the hall. Do not let them escape." The palace defenders poured in, but the assassins were many. More than anyone had expected. They had planned carefully, smuggling weapons and allies inside the very ceremony. Elias and Lorana fought back to back, surrounded by enemies. Blades struck at him, but he blocked with both strength and precision. He moved like a storm, every strike fueled by determination. One assassin sneered at him. "You do not belong here, human. This empire will never accept you." Elias met the attacker's gaze, his voice steady. "I don't need everyone's acceptance. I just need hers." With a swift motion, he struck the assassin down. Across the hall, nobles argued even in the chaos. "See? This is proof the human brings nothing but war." "No, fools, it is proof he is strong. He fights where others would flee." Divisions deepened as they watched. Lorana, her spear trembling in her hands, stood unyielding beside Elias. An assassin tried to strike her down from the side, but Elias blocked the blow just in time. In turn, she thrust her weapon forward, saving him from a hidden blade aimed at his back. They moved as one, protecting each other, their bond shining stronger than words. Suddenly, the leader of the assassins revealed himself. He stepped into the center of the hall, tall and cloaked in black armor. His voice rang like thunder. "This union will not stand. The blood of the throne must remain pure. Kill the human and end this insult." He charged, his blade glowing, with deadly energy. Elias met him head-on. The clash was fierce, each strike shaking the ground. The leader was skilled, stronger than the rest, but Elias fought with the strength of Earth's harsh training and the fire of his heart. "The assassin," leader snarled. "Why fight for her? She is cursed, unwanted even by her own people." Elias's eyes burned with anger. "Because I chose her, because she is worth everything." He pushed forward, his blade catching the assassins in a lock. With a roar, Elias twisted, disarming his foe, then struck with a final blow that sent the leader crashing to the floor. The hall fell silent for a moment. Then the assassins screamed in rage, charging as one. But before they could reach Elias and Lorana, the queen's personal guard stormed in, cutting them down with disciplined precision. The tide of the battle turned at last. One by one, the assassins fell. Some were captured, others slain. The survivors tried to flee, but the palace gates were sealed. There was no escape. When the dust settled, the hall was in ruins. Banners lay torn, blood stained the marble floor, and shattered glass glittered like ice. Elias stood breathing hard, his armor scratched and scorched. Beside him, Lorana leaned on her spear, her chest heaving with exhaustion, but her eyes shining with fierce pride. The queen stepped down from her throne, her robes flowing behind her. She looked at Elias for a long time, then at her daughter. At last she spoke. "The empire has seen, the nobles have seen, you fought together not as strangers but as one. No assassin, no blade, no hatred could break you. She raised her voice so all could hear. This union is sealed, not by ceremony but by battle, by blood, by courage, by loyalty. The hall shook with her words. Some nobles bowed their heads, in acceptance, others in silent fury, but none could deny what they had witnessed. Elias turned to Lorana, his voice low but filled with emotion. We made it. She smiled through tears. Yes, together. That night the palace was quieter. The hall still bore the scars of battle, but peace slowly returned. Elias sat with Lorana in the royal gardens, under the stars. The sounds of rebuilding echoed faintly in the distance. You were incredible, Elias said softly. So were you, she replied. She touched his hand gently. Do you realize what we did today? They tried to tear us apart, but instead we proved stronger than ever. He squeezed her hand. They'll try again. I know it. But I don't care. As long as we stand together, they can't win. Lorana leaned against him, her voice tender. You gave me something I never thought I'd have. Someone who sees me, someone who fights for me. And you gave me something I never thought I'd have, Elias said. A reason worth fighting every battle. Their eyes met. And in that quiet garden their bond was unshakable. Far above, the stars glittered as though the galaxy itself bore witness. But in hidden chambers across the empire, the defeated nobles nursed their wounds and whispered darker plans. For though Elias and Lorana had won the battle for love, the war for the empire's future had only begun. The morning after the battle, the palace was alive with new energy. The halls that had once echoed with whispers of doubt now rang with talk of courage, loyalty, and the impossible union that had survived the deadliest of attacks. Princess Lorana and Captain Elias Vance walked side by side through the corridors, their hands brushing together occasionally. The Queen had summoned them to her chambers first, a private audience before they would face the Empire and its people. The High Queen, still regal and composed, looked at them for a long moment. Then, to their surprise, she smiled faintly. You have both done what no one thought possible, she said. Not only have you survived the trials, but you have endured the enemies who wished to destroy you. The Empire has seen courage and it has seen loyalty. And now, it will also see change. Elias bowed slightly. Your Majesty, we only did what we must. We only stood for what was right. Lorana added softly, and we stood together. The Queen nodded. Very well. Then let the union be formalized. Let the Empire see that strength and honor are not limited to noble blood. Let this day mark the beginning of a new era. The great hall was prepared once more. Nobles and envoys, even those who had tried to resist, now attended with solemn faces. They had witnessed the courage of a human and the determination of a princess. Many could not speak against what had happened, though whispers still circulated. Lorana walked down the aisle, her hand held firmly by Elias. Every step carried a history of struggle, fear, and victory. When she reached the center, she looked into Elias's eyes. Do you still choose this path? She asked, her voice soft but clear. Elias's gaze met hers without hesitation. I do. I choose you, Princess, and I will stand by you as long as the stars shine above us. The hall was silent for a heartbeat. Then the High Queen spoke, her voice carrying across the room. Then by the laws of this empire and by the courage you have both shown, I declare your union sealed. Together, you will shape the future of this world, and perhaps more. The seals of the ceremony glowed above them, ancient symbols entwined with new light, marking not just a union of two souls, but the union of worlds. Humans and aliens alike stared, unsure whether to cheer or tremble, but even the most skeptical could not deny the strength of what they had witnessed. As the ceremony ended, Lorana and Elias turned to face the crowd together. Elias raised a hand in acknowledgement. Today, he said, we have shown that courage, loyalty, and love are stronger than fear and tradition. We stand together not bees of blood or origin,